Welcome to CAD Lesson 2.1b. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to take a DXF file of the top of our tombstone and a DXF file of the base of our tombstone, turn them into 5 distinct parts that we need to laser cut to make the assembly, and how to minimize waste as we do it. We won't be drawing parts directly in DesignCAD. We're just going to import and modify the files we need. So open up DesignCAD. We'll start by clicking File, Import, and then selecting the DXF for the upright part. The imported drawing will pop up on our screen in DesignCAD. We can see that there's a watermark there, reminding us that we're using a non-commercial version of SOLIDWORKS. So we'll just drop a box around the watermark to select it all. Alternatively, we can select either the top line or bottom line of the text just by clicking on them. Press the Delete key. To zoom out a little bit here, we'll press the minus key. The reason for zooming out is that we need to move this piece. If we don't, the next piece we bring in will land right on top of it, making it difficult to select the entities of one piece without getting entities from the other piece. Let's move this piece away from where it came in. This one file has all the elements of the upright portion of our tombstone. It's got the outline, the tongue, the upper lip, the cut-in letters, and the embossed letters. This one part gives us all the information we need to make the front plate, the middle plate, and the back plate. So what we're going to do is copy the whole thing by box selecting it and pressing Ctrl-C. Then we'll click in a blank space and press Ctrl-V to paste a copy of it there. We need a third copy, so we copy and paste it down below. As long as it's not overlapping, it's in a decent location. If it overlaps, it's going to be difficult to select all of the entities of one copy without accidentally grabbing some entities from another copy.
To start our work, we can select a group of entities by boxing them in, or we can select individual entities by clicking on just the entity we want. If we click on the letters, you can see that our letters aren't a single sketch text entity anymore. When they got converted to DXF, it had the same effect as dissolve sketch text does. So we'll have to be careful to get them all when we're selecting them. Okay, so what do we need to make from these 3 copies? We're going to need a back plate. This part is just the outline with no lettering and no tongue. To make it, we will delete all the stuff in the middle with a single box selection, and then we'll go down and delete the tongue. So now we have our back plate. Let's go turn the one at the upper left into our mid plate. The middle plate is not going to have a raised lip around the outside, and it won't have the top group of letters. Both of these are going to be glued to the face of the middle plate during assembly. So we can remove the line running parallel to the outline, and we can remove the letters that say sample only. In terms of remaining elements, we now have a little problem down here. If we laser cut this part as it is drawn right now, we're going to lose the tongue because the laser will cut right across the top of that tongue, separating it from everything else. So what we can do in DesignCAD that we can't do in SOLIDWORKS is to modify that line. We'll select that line and delete it. We'll press Ctrl-R to refresh the screen to make sure that there are no other entities hidden underneath. We'll go get an orthogonal line and use our period key snapping function to replace the segment of the line that was between the left edge of the outline and the left edge of the tongue. The line came out red because that was the default line color when we drew it, but we can just switch it back to black and leave it black as our active drawing color. We can go get that orthogonal line tool again and repeat this step for the other side. Down here, something looks a bit messy, so I'm going to press the Z key to zoom in to get a better look. Nothing changed when I retrimmed it, so it's just a display artifact. It's got to do with the line widths, which we'll clean up just a little bit later on. We'll hold Ctrl and press W to return to a fit screen view. So that's fine. Then we have the remaining to modify is our front layer. Our front is going to need the outer lip cut out of it and the words sample only cut out of it. but it won't have the words "do not eat," which are already being cut out of the middle plate. So we're going to delete "do not eat." We're also going to delete the tongue. So these are the 3 different plates that we'll need to make our upright for our tombstone.
When we look where the lines meet, we can see something's going on with the lines. Let's clean them up a bit before we proceed. We select all and then click on black in our color menu at the upper right. We'll then click on the A towards the bottom of that menu to apply the selected color to all of the selected entities. We'll reselect all and then go up to our line style toolbox in the upper left of our screen. It's set to line type equals solid and width equals 0. That's good. We want 0 width lines here because skinny lines will make it easy to see if we have any double lines or any other problems that will give us grief on a laser cutter. So, with all selected, we can click on the A in the line type menu to apply this line type to the whole drawing.
We've got our 3 different parts for our upright, but we have some inefficiencies. If we were to send the file to the laser cutter looking like this, the laser would go around each part completely independently, leaving thin strips of uncut wood between them. But if we look at the right side of the middle piece and the left side of the back piece, those 2 lines are actually identical, giving us an opportunity to save a little bit of laser time and a little bit of wood. If we put these together and only cut the line once, that single cut will form those edges for both of the parts. So depending on the shape of the sheet of wood we're cutting from, we may want to arrange them differently. Let's assume we have a skinny, vertical sheet of wood to cut from. So, we're going to move this part below the other one to make a vertical stack. We can see right away that this arrangement is actually not the most efficient, because these radiused corners mean that the straight line on top is shorter than that on the bottom of the other piece. Same thing if we flip it and mate the tongue to the back piece. But if we select the front piece and rotate it 180 degrees, the mating edges will be exactly the same length. If we just move them together, there will be 2 lines here even though it will only look like one. Instead, we're just going to delete the horizontal at the top of the lower of these 2 pieces. We'll then select the whole front piece by boxing it in. We'll set a handle at the upper right corner of this part. If we now press the M key, move our cursor very near the bottom right corner of the back plate, and then press the period key, the parts will snap into perfect alignment. Press Enter to lock it in. We can then press Escape to get out of the tools and Ctrl R to redraw and clean it back up. These parts are now fused together and there's only one line here, which saves us 1 unit of whatever the laser time is to cut the line. We'll delete the straight line across the top of the mid plate and we'll use the same process to snap it into position under the front plate. Ctrl W will fit everything to the window and refresh the view. We now have some of these parts nicely stacked, saving cutting time and eliminating any wasted wood between the parts.
All that's left to add to our batch cut file is the parts for the base. It will be made of 2 layers of the same part. We'll start by importing the DXF for the base. Oops! We should have maybe moved the other parts a little further right. See what happened there? When we box select the base and move it, the lines from the other part goes with it. Nuisance, but an easy fix. We'll just delete the extra line from the base and draw one back in where it came from. So again, we've got our watermark, and again, we'll just delete it. We're going to need 2 copies, so we'll copy and paste the base when the time comes. In terms of layout, if we put these parts above or below the stack, we're going to create a thin vertical strip of unused wood beside the stack and between the overhanging bases. Not great. But if we take this first copy and rotate it 90 degrees, we can see that we could put both copies of the base right along the right side of the stack. This would use the top right corner of the wood without leaving any little pockets of useless uncut wood trapped in the middle of our cut. We'll use the same delete line, set handle, move technique we used earlier to mate these parts into position. We'll re-import another copy because we forgot to copy this part before we snapped it into place. We'll pause for a bit to figure out which lines are the best lines to delete. Got it. Now let's box select all the stuff we want to move and use our manual snapping technique to move everything into place. Okay, and this lines up perfectly with the desired position. But near the bottom here, we don't have a line at all. To rectify this, we'll delete all of the collinear vertical lines here and replace them with one long single line. The reason that we do that is that if we have a line that extends just through this one segment, the laser cutter, when it gets to the node at the end of that line, could decide, okay, I'm going to go continue somewhere else and jump to another section of the part, which wastes time. But if we put a single line all the way down and there are no nodes in it, then the laser has no choice but to cut from one end to the other in one motion, which is more efficient. The main layout is now complete.
If we wanted to add some new letters to one of the pieces, this would be a good time to do it. Say we want to engrave the letter G. We will select T here for text, and I put the letter G in. We'll take that up to size 10. There. Okay, so we've got this letter G, but we don't want to cut it though. We want to engrave it. So we'll change the color to say red and apply. Then what we can do is put the different colored entities on different layers like we do in RDWorks. To do this, we use the Layer Control tool. Once in it, we click right anywhere in the table at the top of the pop-up and then select Separate Layers by Color from the drop-down menu that appears. Each color will be moved on its own layer and these layers will carry through when the file is exported as a DXF. Ready for export. Click on File, Export. Change the file type to DXF and make sure it's being saved into the right folder. We'll call it Tombstone Cut File. Once it's saved, it's ready for import into RDWorks to convert to a laser cutter file. If we think we may want to modify this in the future, or at least leave that option open, we can also save this file in the DesignCAD file format in an appropriate folder. Well, that's it for Lesson 2.1b. Thank you all for watching, and in Lesson 2.1c we'll cover the same process again but for the parts of a tab and slot interlocking box. See you then.